Welcome back everyone. My name is Sagar and we are back here with another video. So today in this particular video, we are going to see the basic difference between thread class and runnable interface so that you can decide whether in your project you have to extend the thread class or you have to implement the runnable interface. So without making any further ado, let's get started. So first of all, if you don't know, let me just quickly tell you what is the thread. So suppose for example, this is a book. So this will act as our program. And suppose I am JVM, I am not a thread. I am reading this book. So that means I am creating a thread of execution. So first I am reading this line, then this line. So this is a program, right? And this is a dead thing that we cannot just execute it. We have to create a thread to execute this thing, and we will just read it line by line. Okay. And after that, if some of my friend came and he also want to read the things in this book, so then he will also come and he will just create another thread and he will just read this line. So he will just start reading this line, then this. So he will also create a thread, and both the threads are now working simultaneously, or we can say both the threads are working parallelly. So first, when I am done reading, I will just wait, and the thread is now dead. Okay, and he will also do the same thing. So I hope now you know the basic thing what a thread is, and now let me just show you the methods to create a thread in Java. So first of all, remember that thing, there is a thread class in Java that we can use to create our threads. So that is a thread class that exists in our java.lang package. And using the constructor, we can just create a thread. But that is not the complete thing. So you already know this thing that using this line, we are creating a new thread class object. But that doesn't mean that we are creating a new thread. So let me just tell you, there are two ways by using which we can create a thread in Java. So let me just show you this. And there are two ways. First of all, that is by extending our thread class. So we can just create a custom class and then we can extend that class with our thread class. So let me just create that thing. So first of all, I will just create a class, my thread class, and I will just extend this thread class that is from java.lang package. So now this is our custom class that we can later use to create our new thread. And in order to do that, first of all, we have to override a specific method, and that is called as run method of this thread class. So I will just press here Control O, and you can use here run method. So you can see this run method that return void. So we have to override it, and that method we can use that method to write something that we have to execute in our new thread. So suppose for example, I have to print numbers from 1 to 100 in our new thread. So what I will do, I will just use here a loop from 0 to 100, and I will just print it. And we also have to say that this is in our new thread, in new thread. And suppose I am doing the same thing in our main method. So I will just copy this thing and paste it here. So that will be in main method, in main thread. And also before doing this thing, we have to initialize our thread. So what is the method to initialize our thread? Using this way. So first of all, we have to create an instance of this class that we created our custom class. So I will just create my thread class, that is T, and this is empty constructor. And after that, first of all, we have to create our thread. Now we already know that this class is extending our thread class, and now that means we can also use methods of thread class using this class instance. So what I will do, I will just press T and dot, and now you can see there are all methods of this thread class. And what is the method that we have to call? We have to call this start method, and I will just tell you why we are calling this start method instead of this run method. So first of all, let me just see. So what will be the output? So first of all, we are creating a new thread. So let me just show you. So first of all, we are creating a new thread. So this is our current thread. So that will be moving. So in our main thread, first of all, it will read this first line, then this second line, then third, then fourth. So when we are at this fourth line, so we are creating a new thread. So this is our first line, this is second, this is third, and this is fourth. So when we are at fourth line, we are creating a new thread. And now you can see both this thread will run parallelly. Okay, so first of all, we will just call this start method, and that will trigger the run method that we are overriding here. So here in our run method, we are printing numbers from 1 to 100. And after this line, we can see both the threads are running parallelly. So that means here we are printing numbers from 1 to 100. And in our main thread, we are also printing number from 1 to 100. So So remember that thing. Our main thread will not wait for our second thread to complete the execution. It will just run parallelly. So first of all, in our main thread, we will just start printing number from 1 to 100, and parallelly our new thread is also printing number from 1 to 100. So both will be printing numbers in parallel mode. So let me just see what is the output. And now you can see the difference. Here we are printing numbers parallelly. So first of all, even when we are calling this thread though start, before starting to print our number in the main method, so you can see even we are still printing the first line that is in main method, even when we are calling the start method before this line. So first of all, we will just print some numbers from our main method, and after that you can see we just started in between using our thread methods. So that means both of these statements are running parallelly like this. So this is our main thread and this is our new thread that we created. So they will just print all these things parallelly. So this is our thread and it is just executing, and it is executing up to 99. And when we have printing 99, so it will just again start printing main. And let me just tell you, this execution will not always give the exact same output. So let me just try it again. And this time, so this time first we are printing 4 line from our main method, and then this thread method, then main, then thread. You can see they are both running parallelly. Okay. And at last we are just ending with our thread, but previously we were just ending with our main. So you can also see this thing. So first of all, what is the use of thread? So for very basic example, you can consider some application that is rendering some UI. And suppose you have to make a network call, and you can just create a new thread to make the network call in your background, so that your UI don't have to wait for a long time to get a call back from your network. And these are the things that we will be learning in our Android series. So that was the first method of creating a new thread in Java. And now let me just tell you why we are using here this start method instead of this run method. Here we can see we are overriding only run method, but here we are just executing. Here we are just calling the start method. But why? So let me just try calling this run method. So let me just see what is the output. So this will now not create a thread. And you can see first of all, we will just print all the 100 statement from our thread class and then main class. So you can see all the statements 0 to 99 from our thread class, and then we are starting executing on our main method. And that is the reason to call our start method, because when we are creating a start method, so there is a particular group of threads. So let me just see what is this start method. So you can also see this is our thread class, and you can just read out some things here. So what is the actual use of this start method? So first of all, we have to tell our JVM that we have to now create a new thread, and now we have to start the new thread. So first of all, we'll just add this thread to our group. So there is a particular group of threads that we have to tell that this is a new thread. So you can just read out all the statements, but that is simply the reason for using this start method instead of a run method, because by only calling the start method, we can start our new thread. And using this run method, this is just nothing, and we are just printing 1 to 100. And whenever we start a new thread, this run method will be automatically called. Okay. And now let me just tell you the second way to create a thread in Java, and that is by implementing our runnable interface. So there is our thread class, and the second one is runnable interface. So runnable. Okay, and let me just create a new class. So I will just create a new class here. My thread. Okay, my runnable class. I will just call it runnable class, and this will implement. So runnable is an interface, that why we have to implement it. And runnable interface. So this interface have only one method, that is the run method. So I will just implement the method, and I will just do the same thing. So I will just copy this loop and paste it here. So instead of just doing this thing now, I will just create an instance of this my runnable class. Okay. So now I have to create my runnable class, and T, or we can just say obj, and this is a class, so I can use here constructor. But now I have to call start method. Okay. So now you already know we can only create a class using the start method, but when I am writing it obj dot, so there is only run method and there is no start method. So how can we call a start method now? So that means we have to now create an instance of thread class. So I will just create an instance of thread class T, and new thread. And now I have to tell the new thread that I have to use this object. So I will just pass this object in the constructor, and now that will just call the run method whenever we start a new thread. So it will just call the run method of this class. And now I can just call t dot start. So this is thread class instance. Okay. And now let me just see if this is working. And now you can see this is working exactly same, and we are running both the threads parallelly. This is our main thread and this is our new thread object. And this is also a very simple way, but what is the difference? What is the difference between extending our thread class and implementing the runnable interface? Now let me just tell you, when you just control and left click on this thread class, so you will just see that this thread class is also implementing the runnable interface. So how cool it is. So we are creating a new class that is also implementing runnable interface, and this thread class itself is implementing the runnable interface. But that is not a difference. So the main difference comes when we have to create multiple threads. So first of all, when we have to create multiple threads using this thread class, so I will just see how we can create multiple threads. And instead of printing this loop, I will just print one statement. So instead of this, I will just print new thread created. And I will just also have a pointer. So I will just point how many number of time we are creating thread. So suppose there are some resources that we are using in our new thread. So consider it as a resource, and I will just make it static int pointer. So it will be initially 1, and I will just add it here. So I will also print it. And whenever we are trying to create a new thread, my thread class. So this is our first thread, and we have to just initialize it. So t1 dot start. Okay, t1 dot start. And after that, I will just do the same thing. I will create multiple threads here. So this is t2. And I forgot one thing to tell you. Let me just do this thing first. T3. So first of all, let me just tell you one more thing, that we cannot just call this T1 dot start multiple times, because we cannot just start one thread multiple times. So first of all, you can see this start method. It is also passing here this instance. That means this is passing an object, and we cannot just create multiple classes with the same thread object. So that is why we cannot just use this thing, and that will just give us a compilation error. This will give us an exception, not compilation error. And you can just see this thing, that we cannot just call this thread dot start methods multiple time. So now let me just create multiple threads here, and I will see what will be the output. So in our run method, we are printing new thread created pointer. And so we are creating 3 new threads here, and let me just see the output. So all of them should print new thread created 1, and they are. So first of all, every time I have to change something in this resource. So what I will do, every time we are invoking this run method, I will just do pointer plus plus. And now that means whenever I'm creating a thread, so this will increase. So first of all, this will be invoked when I'm creating this start method. So when I'm calling this start method, this run method will be also called. So first time when I'm calling this thread dot start method, then it should print this, and it will just print new thread created, and it will just print 2. Okay, I have to write it after this. So first of all, it will just print new thread created 1, and after that I'm creating a new thread object. So that means the resources in this class will be reinitialized, and this should be not static for that. So if this is static, then this will be not independent of for different threads. So after this line, when we are creating a new thread, so it will be reinitialized, and every time we will just print 111. And let me just show you. So you can see we are just creating new threads, and we are just creating new resources. Every time we are just creating new resources for our new threads, and that means it is also consuming a lot of space. So this is the first method, and let me just see how we are creating multiple threads using this. So first of all, I will just command this. And now first of all, I will just create an instance of this my runnable class. And after that, now we have to create 3 thread object. So first of all, this thread t1, and now we have to also do the exact same thing, this pointer thing in this class. So after this, I will just increment the pointer plus plus. So now we have to create a thread. So this is our first thread, and I will just pass this object, and t1 dot start. and I will just copy this. So this is our second thread and the third thread. And same here, we cannot just call start method multiple times, and that will just give us an exception. So let me just see what will be the output. So what we were doing in our this class. So okay, we are printing 1 to 100. We don't have to do that. I will just copy this whole thing. And now we have to print. So what we were printing using this class, this my thread class. So first of all, so every time we were just creating new resources and we are consuming new resources. So we were also consuming space. And when we are using this my runnable class, so there we are creating only one instance. And after that, we are creating 3 thread objects. And let me just see what will be the output. So we will definitely use the same resources. Okay, why we are having this? They are every time creating new resources, but that should not be the expected output. And I think we have to add here thread.sleep method. And that means first of all, we are initializing a new thread and then we have to wait for 1 second. So this sleep method will pause the thread, okay? And after this line, also after this line, not after last line, okay? So first of all, we are creating a new thread. Then we will just invoke this function, and here you can see okay. So that the previous output was because of the thread were executing very quickly. That even this pointer was not incremented, and all the 3 threads will just execute quickly. So there you can see we are always executing, we are always using the same resources from this my runnable class, because that is also obvious. We are creating on this class only one time. You can see this, we are creating this object only one time, and that is why we are only using these resources only one time. And that means we are obviously saving our a lot of memory. And let me just check this thing, check the same thing for our this class, my thread class. I will just use here thread.sleep again, thread.sleep here, and then here. So first of all, we are creating a my thread class object, and then we are invoking the run function. So we will just initialize it with 1, and we have to every time use the new resource. So let me just check. We will just print 111, and you can just see 111. So every time we are creating new resources. So that is the main difference between this extending the thread class and implementing the runnable interface. And you can obviously see the other difference, that this runnable is an interface and this thread is a class. So it is obviously easier and a better way to implement an interface rather than extending another class. And here we just have to override one method, so we can just implement our runnable interface every time. And because in your application you might be extending some another class, and then you cannot just extend this thread class also. So that way you have to always implement the runnable interface. So that is your second difference. And one reason if you might want to extend the thread class is because you have to also override another method instead of this run class. So there are so many methods in this thread class. Let me just show you. So dot, and you can now just see there are a lot of methods: start, run, and check access, get id. So there are more methods, there are so many methods. And if you want to override other methods also, then you can just extend the thread class, or if you don't want to, then you can just implement the runnable interface. So I think everything is covered. And yeah, there is one thing remaining. So we can create multiple thread using this instance. And you can just see we are creating multiple threads using only one instance of this class, but we cannot just do the same thing using this class. And I hope now you observed the thing that when we are creating this t1 object, then we can only create one thread with this, so t1 dot start. But when we are creating this object of my runnable class, then you can see we can create as many classes as we want, as many threads. So we can just create this t1, and I will just comment this first. So we are only creating one object of this my runnable class, and we can create multiple thread with this. So this t1 is also creating a new thread, t1 dot start, and then this t2, this t3. So there are two things now. So when we are extending our thread class, can we create multiple thread using the same object? And the answer is you already know we cannot create multiple threads with the same object. And every time we have to just create new instance of this my thread class. And the reason is you already know, when we are creating a thread, we have to add the object instance in the thread group, and we cannot just add the same object multiple times. And I think everything is covered now. So that is it about today, everyone. If this video is helpful, go hit the like button and also subscribe to our channel. And thank you for watching.